you guys, this is Rachel Kirkland here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for being with me for another YouTube video of the week. If you're new to the channel, I will always invite you, please check out my website. It's themodernshaman.net. There's a lot of great resources there, ways to connect with me for personal one-on-one sessions for healing, as well as seership, as well as mentorship and the teaching curriculum, which is similar to this free content, but it works you a lot deeper through practice activities, worksheets, more catered specific video content, exercises through shadow work, guided meditations, guided activations, and just deeper processing of truly stepping into your divine gifts and bringing them out in the forefront with your regular practices to help you integrate them and get a true understanding of what you're capable of. So all that's available on the website, and I encourage you to check it out if you haven't already. Let's now dive into the question of the week. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. This one came in a little while back, and it says, "Hi Rachel, thank you for all of your super helpful videos. They've helped me in so many times in my life. Can you talk about autoimmune diseases? What are they in the spiritual perspective? How can we heal the whole autoimmune system and make it stop fighting against us? Thank you so much. Sending you all my love." Beautiful. So I need to first put in the caveat anytime I talk about health and wellness and autoimmune diseases, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Okay. I can tell you what has come up for me in readings, what I have seen in terms of collective kind of growth and evolutionary process as spiritual beings, evolving and ascending through our human carbon-based body, as well as higher level chakra systems and how to integrate that with the body instead of causing a sense of conflict with the body. So I have had sessions also, I should say, with individuals where spirit will give kind of individual health and wellness advice for fasting, cleansing, healing, channeling information of certain dietary restrictions that would be helpful for them, certain meditative practices and mental restrictions or practices that would be helpful for them. And so when I talk broad about a topic like this, like autoimmune disease, it's not always for every single person. Really, I think that's one area that we've gone wrong in our current traditional medicine and Western medicine for sure, is that we have all of these one-size-fits-all pills or one-size-fits-all health regimens or diets, and it's just really not the case. Our bodies are so individualized. Our DNA is so individualized. Everything is experienced on a very personal level. So I'm using a broad brush today with this video, and I realize, but I want to stick that little caveat in there at the beginning and say that the advice is very particular to different people, all right, and the individuals and how their bodies respond and what their body needs that may be different for you as it is for someone else. So the first thing I want to bring up when it comes to your question about autoimmune diseases and kind of the spiritual perspective that you talked about is that I have seen, as we are in this kind of evolutionary process as a whole, as spiritual beings on the earth at this time, in a time that is a highly volatile but also highly charged time in history for major change, major shifts, major growth in the species of humanity here on this earth, that as we are ascending and growing, as we are taking on more of our divine energy and the vibration of that divinity in our physical form, that what I'm seeing is a rise in autoimmune diseases. They are more common, especially among those that are rising their divine vibration and working very hard and specifically on raising that vibration. What I notice is that there is a commonality of people that essentially begin to let go of a lot of the denser attributes of the human form, the carbon-based form, and essentially bring in more light into the body. And so as more light is being stored in every little cubic inch of our body, we begin to shift, the cells begin to change, and this is a very scientific process. Meaning, and I'm not a scientist either, so I don't know all the terms and the language for how that is defined or how they research that through the physical body in terms of our biology. But I know that it's happening. And I see that clients that I meet with that are regular meditators, that are making choices that they try to align with the highest vibrational possible choice in every action, that are bringing in more light in terms of the kindness in their interactions, the compassion in their interactions, the empathy in their actions, bringing in spiritual dynamics that hold higher vibration. So there's a vibrational aspect of it, and there's kind of the spiritual language around it. And I think people oftentimes don't take into consideration that the energetic part is a very palpable, visceral, experiential aspect. It translates through the body, right? We are made up of energy. And so when we are raising our vibration through conscious choice of choosing experiences and thoughts and compassion and all of the goodness of the human heart, this sounds very esoteric, but the translation of how that energetically feels, most people will say, well, it gives me peace, makes me feel better. It does, because that literally translates to the cells of our body, and specifically to the immune system. That transfers into the T cells, right? The thymus. Okay, I'll go more specifically into that in a minute. But it translates through what we may, say in a broad sense of as experiencing peace or a less stressful day, all right? But stress, even as the term, is measurable. It's measurable in our heart rate, in our hormones, in our anxiety levels that translate through literal chemicals that are being released in our body. And so there is a very biological, chemical component to the fact of we're making esoteric ascension choices to do the right thing, to feel good about people, to share in unity and one heart consciousness, and to bring up our vibration through meditation, to seek out better choices instead of this combative conflict. When we are seeking and acting on those choices that translate as peace in our life, less stress in our life, that changes the biology of your body. It changes the cells in the body. Like I said, the hormones, it changes all of the chemistry, neurochemistry. It changes the physical aspect of the body. And so you can't just say, well, that's spiritual and not say it's physical. It's absolutely physical. And when we separate those, we miss a whole point of the fact of the physical ascension is happening at the same time as the spiritual ascension. They are one and the same. Our physical bodies are changing as a literal impact of our spiritual evolution. And so it is natural, and like I said at the beginning, I see this across the board with clients that are really doing the work. Right? They're not just talking the talk, they're putting it into practice. Whether it's the mental practice of letting go of those negative thoughts over and over and over, that is not me, that is not a thought I want to keep, that is not true. Whatever they're coming back to in mental practices or spiritual practices or spiritual devotion in terms of compassion or ministries or outreach or heart space that truly means something, they are seeing that their physical body is beginning to shift because they are bringing that more light into the experience of their life. All right, and that will change. Like I said, your chemistry, because of the stress levels changing, your hormones will change, and all of that is a process that impacts autoimmune. Boom. Okay, second point that I want to come to that I kind of hit on a little bit was that what I teach in the 13-level chakra system in my masterclass curriculum, I moved beyond the 7-level chakra system into the 13-level chakra system because this is what I've seen is where most people are when they're on their ascension journey. Okay, we move into a higher level chakra system now that talks about the higher heart. Now the thymus, which is like basically right in front of the heart, right behind the sternum, right? Kind of like in the center of the chest. I should sit back while I'm doing this. It's known as the higher heart of the thymus chakra, okay? And it's added into or inclusive in the 13 level chakra system. These are the higher vibrational chakra systems when you begin on your journey to transcend just the 7 that are held within the body. We move into the etheric body as well, our bodies that as an auric field, or our energy body, our rainbow body begins to be inclusive of additional chakras. So the higher heart chakra is where the immune system is aligned with higher capabilities of holding vibration. So essentially, it takes on a whole new aspect of immunity. And when I teach this, and I have a module on this, if you've got autoimmune issues and you want to work specifically and target that chakra, there's a module just for that chakra, and I think it's, I think it's around like $75, okay, for that particular module in the masterclass curriculum. It's on my website if you're interested in doing that. But it goes through particular aspects of the thymus chakra, the higher heart. This is where not only the personal heart and the personal heart center handles its own patterns, its own issues, it translates through the body, through the higher heart, to where it takes on a collective consciousness. When we begin to move our vibration out of our personal experience, the ego experience, into the collective dynamic, the oversoul dynamic, sharing of this one heart, of this larger communal collective energy, we activate that thymus or that higher heart chakra. Now, when this is activated, anything that is dense, that is dark and shadow aspects there will come up for clearing. And oftentimes I see that as translating through autoimmune disease or autoimmune issues, where we have to find balance with our hormone system, and that's the endocrine system, with a lot of the way that the T cells, so the T cells of the thymus, like the T cells essentially help regulate what your body views as a healthy sense of healing and kind of adapting. It has a healthy sense of adaptation, okay? And adapting to particular cells or fighting off particular cells, things that are bad for the body or not, and being able to identify what it harmonizes with and what it does not. Now you can see that when you go into higher levels of energetic vibration, your body needs to recalibrate what it will allow and what it will not. Think of it like a filter system, okay? And if you've ever done any sort of like panning for gold, or going to even a beach and having some sort of mesh or filter, and you put all the stones in there and then you kind of shake it out, right? And all the little rocks and the sediment fall. Similar process that the T cells are creating, and our thymus is trying to determine what it will filter and what it will not. And this process, when it goes through a higher filtration system, the mesh essentially gets finer and finer, and it begins to reject lower level vibrational dense matter, more refined than before. And so your body goes through a calibration system when you are mainly holding a very high, fine, refined vibration. Think of it as a very fine mesh filter. And so now it's really rejecting a lot of things. And when this happens, oftentimes people that I'm working with will find that their body will get highly reactive to certain foods, highly reactive to certain coloring agents or additives or sugars or alcohol, or things that their body used to be totally fine with. After actually working on their vibration and getting in regular meditation and clearing out people and places and groups that were holding them down, basically getting rid of density in their life and their mind, in their heart, translates through the body, and they find the same thing has to be filtered out in the physical form, and they no longer, their body will start to reject it. And the autoimmune is already recalibrating on the basis of your higher vibration, saying, I can no longer accept the lower vibrational, density of the alcohol or of GMOs or of wheat or of color and coloring agents, or of, like I said earlier, sugars. Any sort of thing that your body deems as a sense of lower vibration than the vibration that you're holding as your foundational core frequency, it begins to filter out. And so what happens here is that we have to, first of all, clear that out just like we would clear out things in our life. And a lot of times that's hard for people. I don't know why diet is so hard for us, but it's almost easier for us to cut off friendships that we know are toxic than foods that we know are toxic, or mental practices of thinking that we know are toxic. All that being said, it still has to filter out and align with the higher vibration and the amount of light that you've now moved through into your higher heart. And that higher heart is the processor of all of that. And it is held within the Thymus chakra, which deals with autoimmune, immunity, and recalibrating what immunity means for me. When you get to that point, when you pass the threshold, then essentially your body is a very, almost like a strategically trained athlete on a vibrational level. It is lean, mean, and clean. And green, typically, right? Cleans all of that out. And the process begins really working in a major way to where your body, your soul, and your mind are completely in alignment and in harmony and able to impact on such a higher level with a fast alignment, a fast calibration. Not a lot is slowing you down because that filter has cleaned it out. But I will say that what happens first is the conflict in the body of it rejecting things that are no longer able to sustain in that refined filter. I want to tell you, if you're having problems with this or you're struggling with this, first of all, it's a good thing. All right? It's a good thing when your body says this no longer works with your vibration. It's hard sometimes, just like I use that analogy of the toxic relationship, when we're used to bad patterns of going back to the ex, going back to the ex, going back to the ex, and we're like, we know they're bad for us, but I go back to that, those patterns. We all know those patterns, right? Or going back to the alcohol, or going back to the drugs, or going back to the whatever your little escape was. You'll notice that when we start to cut those things out, that it is a good thing for us. So remind yourself of that when it feels like, what the heck is going on in my body? Your body is recalibrating to a much higher level filtration system. And that autoimmune is having to learn what the T cells value and say is okay at this higher calibration of light, and what is not, and what is considered denser debris within the body to fight off. And oftentimes, the higher the filter, the more it begins to fight off. So align and notice what it is that it's agreeing with and what is not. When I went through that process, what was really helpful to me on just a very biological level was getting a hair allergy test. I have any food allergens, any chemical allergens, any metal allergens, any gut allergens, any tree and grass allergens. I got a big analysis done on what is my body allowing and what is it not allowing anymore. And it was a shocker because all this stuff came out that had never bothered me before in my youth, and had never bothered me before this ascension path. And there's a lot more added into our foods now than there used to be added into our foods. And so we don't always know what we're getting when we buy things. And so it's really helpful to get that analysis done. I also started really paying attention to my moon cycles, my hormone cycles, my periods, like how my emotional impact with the sense of cycle that was going on in my life. This is really helpful to get your circadian rhythms in harmony with the earth again, because so much of what's put through our bodies also gets us out of sync with the earthly rhythms, the earthly seasons, the earthly cycles. And so when that is out of harmony, I notice it translates also through the thymus and the physical form of how we are physical on a physical planet. So getting those in harmony and working with a regulated sense of emotional cycle, understanding that, it all translates, because that still feels like stress in the body when we're out of alignment. I also worked a lot with creating a sense of schedule for myself. And this is a lifestyle of creating that peace and creating that non-stress environment, because the systems that are around us do not create a sense of peace, do not create a sense of safety, and so we have to learn to create that structure for ourselves, for our own life, and then keep that into place. That translates through the body, through the higher heart, is the balancing instead of the fighting and the conflict here. So it's a personal practice as well as a physical practice of how much I should let in, my food process, my exercise process, my mental processes of whether it's meditation or walking or the thoughts I think versus the thoughts that I let go. All of that is inclusive when it comes to autoimmune and the thymus and the higher heart. These are higher vibrational questions. Great question. I hope that was helpful to you, and I will be back here next week with another video. Blessings.